Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. This is Team List Tuesday. I am doing it on Wednesdays this year, so the team lists will come out on Tuesdays. I will be doing my my round reviews, I should say, every Tuesday. Every Wednesday, I'll be going through each team list and diving into why certain coaches have picked certain players in a certain position, and talk about the teams as they are currently going on throughout the season. And then on Thursdays, I will be giving my upcoming round preview as well. I don't do that for the trials. I talk more about the round as I go through the team lists. But tomorrow I'll be reviewing the All Stars game over the weekend. And also next week I'll be focusing on season previews and then also going through the team lists for the Vegas teams. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe on YouTube and follow on Spotify, as it really means a lot and I appreciate it. So I hope you're enjoying the podcast. To think this podcast started early November, and I remember thinking I remember saying we are so deep in the off season. And we've got a long way to go. And here we are, just a week and a half away from kickoff. So things are really starting to roll up now. I'm getting nervous as a rugby league fan. I've got a tipping comp with my family that I take extremely seriously, and I'd love to win it one day. It's been, since 2013. It's been a long time since we've lifted up the trophy here, the Diamond Dogs, down in South Australia. So it'd be nice to do that. So it'd be nice to at least make the top four in the tipping. That would make it an exciting year, especially after last year's tipping. Let's get straight into the team lists for this weekend. The World Club Challenge is on Friday. That is the first game of the round, and what a big game it is. I think this is by far just one of the biggest games of the season. And for me personally, I don't think it gets spoken about enough. Over the years, a lot of Super League premiership winning sides, such as the Leeds Rhinos and the Wigan Warriors and St. Helens, they've actually beaten the NRL teams in this pretty convincingly. They did dominate in the 2000s at one point. But for me, in my opinion, I look at the team lists and I think this could be a massive scoreline towards the Brisbane Broncos. Taking nothing away from Hull KR, but I just think what the Broncos achieved, the way they did it, I reckon they're taking this pretty seriously. I saw Michael Maguire talking to the team on a Brisbane Broncos YouTube clip that the club put on last week. I think it was from them, and he was talking about how they need to treat this as a round one game, and also how they've got to treat it for what it is, which is to make you the best and most successful club in the world. So a really big game in my opinion. That starts Friday at 6:30am Australian Eastern Standard Time. Let's go through the Hull KR lineup. At fullback, Arthur Morg, Tom Davies and Joe Burgess on the wings. Peter Hiku, former Manly player, former Cowboy and Warrior. He's in the centres alongside Oliver Gildart, who played a season there at the Tigers. Didn't play overly much NRL, I've got to admit. Mikey Lewis, what a gun he is, alongside Tyrone May in the halves. Suaso Sue, Jez Litton, Tom Amone up front. Jez Litton in the number 9 jersey there. Dean Hadley, James Batchelor, the edges, and locking the scrum, Elliot Minchella. On the bench, Sam Luckley, Jai Whitbread, Reese Martin, and Carl Lawton. So Carl Lawton's come from the Cowboys over straight into a World Club Challenge. So good on him. Let's look at the Broncos now. Number 1, Reece Walsh. 2, Josiah Karapani. 3, Katoni Staggs. 4, Jahamet Shibasaki. 5, Dean Mariner. 6, Ezra Mam. 7, Adam Reynolds. 8, Corey Jensen. 9, one of my best mates, actually. I was about to say Corey Fenton. I'm going, how the fuck did he get there? Corey Jensen. 9, Ben Hunt. Payne Haas at 10. 11, Jack Gajeski. 12, Jordan Ricky, and 13, Patrick Carrigan. On the bench, Corey Pakes, Grant Anderson at 15, 16, Jaden Hunt, and 17, Blake Moser, who was severely injured last year, around this time last year, and missed out on the whole NRL season from memory. So good to see him get straight back in there. They are losing a couple of players, such as Tyson Smoothie, so there is a bench spot now available. For Blake Moser. Let's look at the Warriors and the Dolphins. So, in my opinion, I reckon the Broncos win that and win that well. Mind you, I might be completely wrong. But I just look at those lineups and I think, well, I think they've just got too much speed, too much skill, too much experience in big games now. I think, you look at the likes of Payne Haas, Reece Walsh, Adam Reynolds, that grand final experience. They've all won a comp together. I mean, that 1-13 is pretty well the 1-13 in the grand final, apart from Mam coming on from the bench and Ben Hunt starting at 5'8", but it's pretty well there. I think they are missing out on Brendan Piakura, who is recovering from an injury. So Jack Kajeski goes into the second row spot. Grant Anderson, I reckon, for me, he's just a Michael Maguire type of player, just a hard worker, not your superstar flashy winger or footballer, but he'll just get it done. And I reckon Madge will make sure he plays consistent first grade at some point this season. The next game, the Warriors and the Dolphins. This is at Leichhardt Oval, 6 p.m. Friday. Let's look at the Warriors now. Now, before I dive into the NRL teams, really interesting to see a lot of teams naming a lot of their superstars in certain positions now. So it's getting to that point now where, okay, we're a week away. Well, for a lot of these teams, the teams playing this week aren't playing in Vegas, so they've got 2 weeks until kickoff. But I think it's a really important weekend for these teams playing a lot of their stars in certain positions. And I reckon coaches, for me, in my opinion, this is as close as a dress rehearsal as it can get for a lot of teams. So it's I reckon, as a rugby league fan, as a Manly fan, I can't wait for the game on Sunday against the Rabbitohs. As a rugby league nerd, I think if you're like me and just obsessed with the game and the NRL, I reckon you're going to take plenty out of this weekend, especially when it comes to tipping and fantasy and super coach and all those sort of things. I reckon it's going to be really interesting, and a lot of questions will be answered over the weekend. Let's look at the Warriors lineup. At number 1, Shans Nicole Klokstad, 2, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, 3, Ali Leatua, 4, Adam Pompey, 5, Hazen Mellars, 6, Luke Hanson, 7, Tanner Boyd. He will start the season in the number 7 jersey. Luke Metcalf expected to be back after round 7. So Tanner Boyd will play the first quarter of the season for the Warriors. Number 8, Tanner Stowers-Smith. 9, Wade Egan. I was very surprised he played last week against Manly, I've got to say. He did a decent job, but he'll be getting another run this weekend as well. Jackson Ford, who I thought was really impressive, one of the only really impressive players last week for the Warriors against the Manly Sea Eagles. 11, Kurt Capewell, 12, Jacob Laban, and 13, Aaron Clark, who has gone from an average first grader to an elite lock forward. What a season he had for the Warriors last year. On their bench, no more Freddie Lussick at the Warriors. He's gone to the Penrith Panthers. So Samuel Healy, who I really rate. I think his service from dummy half is elite. His passing is absolutely fantastic. Morgan Gannon, the Englishman from the Super League, he's come over now to the Warriors. Leka Halasima, named in the 16 jersey on the bench. For me, I find that surprising. Last week he was named in the centres. I couldn't understand why. I was wondering if perhaps they started him in the centre, but they've got a lot of outside backs. They've got, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who you'd expect to be on one wing, or possibly he moves into the centres. So they've got Tane Tuapiki as well, who can play fullback. Shans can move into the centres. I just didn't understand why he played centre last week, but I've got to say I am surprised he's not starting on the edge after what he did last year. But I can also understand Andrew Webster's thinking of bringing Big Lecker on after about 20 minutes and starting to destroy opposition sides when they get a bit tired in the first half. Number 17, Eddie Iarima Tuiva, 18, Tane Tuapiki, 21, Kalis Fadialofa. He's a young second rower. He's only 19 years of age, and there are big raps on this kid. So if you're a Warriors fan, I reckon this kid could be a future superstar at the club. I've heard many great things about him, and apparently is one of those up-and-coming superstars coming through the ranks there. You look at the juniors they've got at the Warriors. They've been so successful for so long now, coming through the ranks there. But young Kalis, apparently, he's expected to get a fair bit of first grade in season 2026. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him play in this match. There's other players down from jersey 20 to 29. I've got to be honest, I've never heard of them before. So I'm going to skip over them because I don't think they'll be playing overly much first grade this year. So no disrespect to them, but I don't know them, so I'm not going to talk about them and pretend I know what I'm talking about there. The Dolphins, interesting to see Trey Fuller named in the fullback position. Now, the Hammer will not be playing in this game. Ben Dobbin came out last week and revealed that he's been hearing at the Dolphins HQ that Trey Fuller will be starting at fullback, and Jake Averillo, after last week's performance at fullback, he may unfortunately, I understand he's been playing in that 3 jersey and at centre for the Dolphins, but he may unfortunately have sort of after that performance. I didn't think he was as terrible as other podcasters out there, but I did think he did struggle. But he also had a couple of good runs too, which I haven't heard mentioned. And he's a good footballer, Jake Averillo, but I think there's strong consideration now. You know, Trey Fuller, how good has he been recently? For me, I just think Hammer in the centres, Hammer at 3, and Herbie Farnworth to start the season in the centres will probably be the best centre combination of the NRL. Absolutely fantastic if that's the way they go. But Trey Fuller at fullback, really, I think he's a big watch. I reckon this is a really big game for the young fella. I think he's around 27, 28 years of age now. He's been playing a lot of his career in the Queensland Cup. He got an opportunity a couple of years ago under Wayne Bennett. He delivered for him. He got an opportunity last year as well, then got severely injured. I think I'd love to see him start the season at fullback, and I hope for the Dolphins fans that Ben Dobbin is on the money. Obviously, Hammer, they're not short of fullbacks there. They could also, if they're really short, move Asako to fullback, Herbie to fullback, Cobbo to fullback. They just have so much versatility, flexibility in their squad. So, let's watch Trey Fuller closely on the weekend. 2, Jermaine Asako. 3, Jake Averillo. 4, Herbie Farnworth. 5, Selwyn Cobbo. 6, Cody Nikorima. 7, Isaiah Katoa. 8, Francis Molo. 9, Brad Schneider. Really interested that Brad Schneider's been named in the number 9 jersey. We now know that Jeremy Marshall-King will miss at least a couple of months for the Dolphins, which is a huge loss for them. I actually thought if he played last week, he could have been the difference in beating the Gold Coast Titans. Just his defence and skill and speed out of dummy half. I feel they really missed that last week. Schneider started at 5'8" last week against the Gold Coast Titans in that number 6 jersey. But he also did spend some time at hooker as well last week. I thought he did a decent job at hooker. So interesting to see that they've gone that direction. Max Plath can also play hooker, but he's expected to be out for the opening few matches of the season as well. Oren Keeley, of course, can play hooker as well. So he's an option for them there. Tom Gilbert named at 10. Interesting to see him named at prop forward. Wasn't sure if he'd start at lock, start on the edge, or start at prop, but good to see him starting after the last couple of years he's had with his injuries. 11, Connolly Lemulemu. 12, Oren Keeley. 13, Morgan Knowles, the Englishman who came over. I thought he was, pretty decent last week. Missed a few tackles, but he showed a lot of aggression in defence. So I'm interested to see how he defends this time, and I think his mission will be to make sure he doesn't miss any tackles this time around. On the bench, Tavita Nafahu. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, Dolphins fans, or any rugby league fans, but I'm pretty sure he played on the wing last week, Tavita Nafahu. I thought he did a good job. He dropped the ball over the line, but I'm pretty sure that's him. So they're going to start with him in the 14 jersey. I may be wrong, though, so please let me know if I'm wrong. 15, Thomas Flegler. He changed the second half for the Dolphins last week. I understand they didn't win, but when he was on the field for the opening 10 minutes of that second half, they were able to score a couple of tries on the back of the momentum that he brought into that side. So really interested to see how he goes in this game. 16, Kulikefu Fine-Fuiaki, and 17, John Ganofo. I apologise. It's not pronouncing that correctly. A couple of players in their reserves here in the trial to watch. Zach Garton, who I thought was really impressive. He combined really well with a young Fiend, who played halfback last week for a large majority of that second half. I thought he had a nice combination there with Zach Garton, the edge forward, on that left-hand side, and I thought they worked really well together. In fact, I thought that was a really good combination. I know it's just a trial. May sound ridiculous, but the way they combined at times actually remind me of Cliffy and Beaver. So, that's a wrap. That they were really good together, and I'd assume from watching them play together last week, they've played a lot of football together. Um, they've got Noah Fien, as I mentioned, Elijah McKay in the 26 jersey. For me, oh man, who do I go in that game? They're playing at Leichhardt Oval. This is the first game. I think I'm going to go. I'm going to go the Dolphins this time. I think they just look a little bit stronger. Who knows? Tigers and Panthers, the next game, 8:10 p.m. on Friday, Australian Eastern Standard Time. Let's have a look at the Tigers lineup. Now, really interesting here for me. Dream Fuller named at fullback, no surprise there, but Hamasi Makasini, he's the young 18-year-old centre that was coming through the ranks. He wore the number 3 jersey last week and absolutely dominated, scoring a hat-trick against the Sydney Roosters at McDonald Jones Stadium in Newcastle. He's named on the wing in this game, and I can understand that. I reckon Benji's thinking, look, we could play Taylor May on the wing, but we could also play Hamasi on the wing where he's a bigger body. He may just get himself a little bit more involved in the games as well from the wing. Teams will target him under the high ball, but I reckon Benji trusts him enough to handle that. They've got Taruva on the other wing in the number 5 jersey. Taylor May, 4-star for Toa. Just on Hey Massey, I reckon what I like about him being on the wing is I reckon his kick returns will be really damaging. I reckon he could start sets off really well for the Tigers, just like Brian To'o does for the Penrith Panthers. So really looking forward to seeing how he goes at wing in this game. Jerome Luai and Adam Dewey in the halves. Benji Marshall confirmed last week that Adam Dewey will start in the number 7 jersey. Latu Fainu is injured at the moment. He is expected to miss the opening couple of weeks of the season. So he wasn't actually an option to start the season or start round 2, as they do have the bye in round 1. Bunty Afoa in the number 8 jersey alongside Fanor Pole, who wears the 10. 9, Apisai Coruscant. 11, Samuel Afinu, Kai Pearce-Paul coming from the Newcastle Knights, and 13, Alex Twell. 14, who's just re-signed at the club as well. 14, Jock Madden. 15, Jack Attard. 16, Alex Seyfarth, and 17, Sione Fainu. And then they've got other players on the bench there. Tristan Hope, who I thought played pretty well in the trial last week against the Roosters. Young Maverick Geyer at the Tigers now, and Charlie Murray, who I thought did a good job for them last week as well. Let's look at the Penrith Panthers. Dylan Edwards at fullback, Thomas Jenkins and Brian To'o on the wing. Isaac Targo and Paul Alamotti in the centres. I think the way they'll start is Alamotti on the wing. Thomas Jenkins probably will not get a start in that round 1 game, depending on how he goes in this game, obviously. But really excited to see how he goes in this game. But I do believe that with Casey McLean coming back, he'll probably go into the centres. He'll be back for round 1 against Brisbane. He'll go into the centres and Alamotti to the wing. That's the way I think it would line up there. But interested to see. I thought Thomas Jenkins was unfairly dropped last year, but then again, who am I to say? When Alamotti played in the finals, absolutely dominated, especially in that prelim final against Brisbane. Sure, the Penrith Panthers didn't win that game, but I thought Alamotti was one of their best players in that game and throughout the final series for the Penrith Panthers. In the halves, Blaze Talangi, Nathan Cleary. Up front, Moses Leota and Lindsay Smith, Mitch Kenny at 9, Isaiah Papali'i, Kalani going, and 13 locking the scrum is Isaiah Yeo, the captain. Young Freddie Lussick, junior Beacon Hill Bear. He's in the number 14 jersey. Apparently, he's been training the absolute house down. Nathan Cleary was interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and he said young Freddie Lussick... it was actually Isaiah Yeo. He said Freddie Lussick was one of the most impressive players at preseason training. So he's in the number 14 jersey. Billy Phillips at 15, 16, Zachary Clark, and 17, Luron Patea. They've got Jesse McLean at 21, Kurt Fors, who played halfback last week for them, Billy Scott at 26, Tom Alley at 20, Patrick Moy at number 19. So they've got some players that will play in that second half as well. If you're a rugby league fan and you're looking at these team lists, you'd expect most of these team lists to play the entire first half, and then for a lot of them to come off and these younger guys that we really haven't heard overly too many too much of, as they, a lot of them are only 18, 19, 20 years old, haven't played much first grade before. So they will come on in the second half. So something to expect in the trials, that you'll be able to take a lot more out of the first half than the second half, in my opinion, in terms of player positions, who's in form, so on and so forth. The next game is the Sharks and the Canberra Raiders. This is at 3:50 p.m. on Saturday, the February 21st. This is Super Saturday. Cronulla Sharks, they line up like this. William Kennedy at fullback, Sione Katoa and Sam Stone Street on the wing. Of course, Ronaldo Mulatalo will be out for a large portion of the NRL season with a torn ACL. Jesse Ramian and KL Iro in the centres. What a young gun he is, KL Iro, making his debut in season 2024. Since then, he's just absolutely dominated. Really good defender too. Very underrated winger. Struggled with injury at times last year, but when he played, he absolutely dominated. I think we saw enough from Sam Stone Street last week to see that he's going to cement his spot. I think he scored something about 16 tries in 16 games or something like that. So he's a good finisher. He knows how to find the try line. I think he's a good young player at the Cronulla Sharks. I think if you put the Perth Bears or Papua New Guinea, you'd be watching this young local junior there at Cronulla, Sam Stone Street, because I don't know if he'd be able to get a crack over Sione Katoa and Mulatalo, who's just recently re-signed long-term at the club. The halves, Braden Trindle and Nico Hines, Adam Fanua-Blake and Tom Hazelton up front, Blake Brayley at number 9. The edges, Britton Nakora, Billy Burns, who I thought did a great job last year for them, and Jesse Colquhoun, who I did mention with the Cronulla season review of 2025. I talked about Cameron McInnes's injury a few weeks ago on the podcast and spoke that Jesse Colquhoun would be a really good fit. When he came on and played in the final series, he absolutely dominated. I thought he was one of their best, and I thought he was just a real good player for them last year. I think he's a really underrated player, Jesse Colquhoun. I reckon by the end of season 2026, we'll be hearing a lot more about him. The interchange, Sifa Talakai, 15, Toby Rudolph, who played lock forward last week. Oregon Kafusi at 16 and 17, Braden Ueli. They've got players on the reserves such as Jaden Beryl, the young dummy half there, Riley Jones, Mawene Hiroti, who played a bit of centre last week. He can also play on last year. He can also play on the wing. Good player, Mawene Hiroti. So we'll be interested to see some of those players play for Cronulla. I reckon if you're a Cronulla fan, you can't take overly too much away from last week. I mean, sure, their forward pack was pretty decent. They did have some first graders in there, but I just thought, to be honest, I thought Parramatta, I thought they were very, very good. But in saying that, I think Cronulla, if you're a Cronulla fan, that you didn't have. Most of your players weren't first graders in that game. I wouldn't be overly too concerned about that. The Canberra Raiders, Dane Laurie at fullback, Savelio Tamale back on the wing alongside Xavier Savage. So he started on the wing last year in Vegas against the Warriors, got injured after a few matches, and Jed Stewart came on and played the remainder of the season, until I think he did play the remainder of the season on the wing there for the Raiders. Simi Sasangi in centre alongside Sebastian Chris, who was extremely good when he came on from the bench last week, playing in the number 15 jersey against the Melbourne Storm on that early Friday night game. The 6, Ethan Alea, 7, Jalen Afamasaga. I'd be really interested to find out. I might do some digging on this to see if Jalen Afamasaga is actually Jack Afamasaga's son. He played for Manly in the mid-2000s. So it'll be, if anyone knows, please leave in the comments, and I'll be really interested to know, because he'll be one to watch out for. His old man played a few games for Manly, and he was a really, really hard man to stop in defence. He was really strong in attack. I remember being a teenager at Brookie Oval, watching him play a few games for Manly, thinking he's a beast, this guy. So going to be interesting to see if it is his son, or a relative. It'll be interesting to see if he's related to Jack Afamasaga. 8, Atta Mariota. 9, Jaden Brayley. Is Brayley going to get much of a go this year? I probably wouldn't think so. I think Tom Starling and Owen Paddy is definitely probably in front of him at the moment. But if one of those players go down, don't be surprised if you see a bench spot for Jaden Brayley. Is he an 80-minute hooker at the moment? I don't think he is, after the injuries and consistent injuries he's had since 2021. For me, I just think he's a big watch, though. I think his leadership will bring a lot to the club, and I do think he will play some first grade, no doubt, this year. I love Jaden Brayley as a player, so I'd love him to play consistent first grade if he can. Interesting to see Zach Hosking named in the number 10 jersey, normally an edge forward or coming on from the bench. into the edge. So he's starting at prop there. Matty Nicholson, what a player he was from the Super League last year. Noah Martin, who his brother Josh Martin, I think it is. Those boys dominated in the trials last year, so good to see him named on an edge. And Morgan Smithies, he's named in the number 13 jersey. On the bench, 14 Owen Paddy, 15 Jed Stewart, 16 Sione Finau, and 17 Jordan Uta. And then players that they had last week: Chevy Stewart, Miles Martin, Miles Martin it is, Jake Clydesdale. Some other players down there that I really don't know, I haven't heard of before, but we'll be interested to see them in the trial this week and get to learn and watch these younger kids coming through at the Canberra Raiders. Now, for me, this is the game of the round on Saturday night at 6 p.m. The Sydney Roosters and the Parramatta Eels. This is at Polytech Stadium at Gosford. For me, it's always going to be called Blue Tongue Stadium. That's what I grew up with it being called. A fantastic, beautiful stadium too. Let's have a look at the Sydney Roosters here. Number 1, James Tedesco. 2, Tommy Talau. And on the other wing is Mark Nawanga. Mark Nawanga. There we go. There we go, Connor, man. In the centres, Billy Smith and Fatali Polga. In the 6, Daly Cherry Evans alongside Sam Walker there. Obviously, the big watch for the Roosters fans this week to see how they combine. Going to be really interesting to see how long it takes them to combine and connect. It may only take them a couple of weeks. In fact, it may take them half a season, to be honest. I don't think it'll take that long, but I think Cherry Evans will be just happy to kick back, do his thing, not be centre of attention at the Roosters. Sam Walker, it's his team. He's got the number 7 jersey. What he wants will go, and Cherry Evans will play his eyes up footy, normal style of football. I've spoken on the podcast before as Kieran Foran and Cherry Evans. They've spoken about in 2022 that they always felt that Kieran was more of a 7 and Daly was more of the eyes up, erratic footballer that played what he saw in front of him. So I think Daly Cherry Evans will play a pretty well at 5'8", to be honest. I remember in his first season in 2011, he played for the Four Nations at the end of that season, I'm pretty sure it was, and he wore the 6 a couple of games in that and played really well. And, I understand that was 16 years ago. It was a different game, rugby league back then, but he could certainly do a good job, and I reckon he could transition into that number 6 jersey quite easily. Good riddance, DCE. I think, the way he handled leaving, good on him for taking up a new challenge, but do not appreciate him coming on national TV after, what the club has given him and his family over the years as well. The club also fucked up. I won't get into it either because that was a whole podcast I did a few months ago, and I had to have a beer after it, actually, because I got a bit heated. Anyway, 6, Daly Cherry Evans, Sam Walker at 7. Nafahu White, how impressive was he last year? Really one of those players that really showed what he's made of last year in season 2025. Lindsay Collins up front in the number 10 jersey, Reece Robson at 9, Angus Crichton, Nat Butcher starting on the edge, and Blake Steep starting at lock forward. Going to be interesting to see, as we remember Victor Radley is suspended for the opening, what is it, 9 or 10 matches of the season. Could be less than that. But I remember it's a large chunk of the opening rounds of the season. Last week they started with Siwa Wong at lock forward in the number 13 jersey. I thought he did a pretty good job there. I thought he did a really good job for the Roosters last week. Blake Steep, an up-and-comer local junior at the Sydney Roosters. So I think he'll be doing a good job at lock forward this week as well. Really good defender and really fit. Blake Steep reminds me of Lachlan Hubner at the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I think he's going to be one to watch in season 2026 once again. A real groundbreaking year in season 2025. I thought he just let the NRL know and other clubs around the Roosters that that they're on notice, because if they're going to mess with Blake Steep, then they better be careful, because this young kid's got so much passion, emotion, determination in the way in which he runs, tackles, hits hard. I really rate him, so I'm really interested to see how he goes in the 13 jersey over the weekend on Saturday night. 14 Connor Watson, 15 Siwa Wong, 16 Spencer Lenu, and 17 Egan Butcher. They've also got players on the bench there. We know Hugo Savala, Cody Ramsey. It will be great to see him on the wing at some point for the season. what a story that would be. He hasn't played since I think 2023. He's been really unwell the last 2 years. So if he can come back and play on the wing for the Sydney Roosters at some stage through the year, I've got no doubt he will. I mean, I think there'll be injuries to every side consistently through the year. Such a long season, isn't it? 27 rounds. There will be injuries, and that's just the way it goes. And I hope he gets a shot at some stage, possibly over the Origin period. If Tedesco plays Origin, which I hope he does, I think he deserves it. I think he's the key fullback at the moment. Cody Ramsey to play on the wing, I reckon that would be really, really good at some stage through the year if they move. Or that he can also play fullback, but I hope he gets a crack at some stage. Toby Rodwell and Tom Rodwell, they played really well, good football last week. If you haven't heard the review in the podcast yesterday of the trials over the weekend, I gave these two blokes a massive, massive rap. I thought they were outstanding. And Junior Tupou named in the number 24 jersey, so he'll be really good for them. I've got no doubt as well. The Parramatta Eels, they line up like this. Isaiah Iongi at fullback. He was outstanding last week. Bailey Simonson and Josh Adokar on the wings, and Will Penasini and Sean Russell. I think Sean Russell's performance last week wasn't just that try he scored, it was just everything he did. He hit hard, he ran hard. He just looked like he was hard to tackle. And if you're a Perth Bears fan, you're going to be really excited for Sean Russell coming to your club. I thought he was just an average NRL first grader. And yes, I understand it was a trial, but you do take plenty out of the way in which people and players play in trials as well. I take them a little bit more seriously than other people. I think you can actually take plenty out of trial matches. I thought he was outstanding last week. And to see Brian Kelly not named in that 4 jersey surprises me. I assumed he would have been the other centre alongside Will Penasini, but Sean Russell, I tell you what, this is a big game for Sean Russell. If he wants to cement that number 4 jersey on his back for round 1 against the Melbourne Storm, then I think this is a big game for him. And I don't think Jason Riles will care if he scores tries or does whatnot, but he'll be looking at his defensive reads on the goal line defence and just looking at little twerks in his game to see if he's worked on them over the off-season. From what I saw last week, he has. He looks bigger, he looks stronger, he looks faster, he looks fitter. I think he could be really damaging for the Parramatta Eels if he starts at centre this year. Josh Adokar on the other wing, as I mentioned. Jonah Pezzett in the number 6 jersey, combining with Mitchell Moses, which will be the first time these two combine together. What about the halves combos in this game? Sam Walker at 7, Daly Cherry Evans at 6, Mitchell Moses at 7, Jonah Pezzett at 6. Fantastic. Number 8, Jermaine Hopgood, who for me personally, I think he's more of a number 13. Just the way he's ball playing in the middle of the ruck there. I just think his defence at 13 is great, but also his ball playing. He was originally at the Penrith Panthers, came to Parramatta 3 years ago. Brad Arthur put him straight in that 13 jersey, and I thought he was the most underrated lock forward in the game at one point through, well, he has been, in my opinion, over the last couple of seasons. Late last year, Jason Riles moved him to prop forward, but now they've got Jack de Belin starting in the number 13 jersey in this game. So that's going to be interesting to see if they stick with that for round 1. Riley Smith, who I thought was outstanding last week, he starts in the number 9 jersey, and I think that's the right decision. There was always a question mark of who starts at 9, Talon De Silva or Riley Smith, but I think Talon De Silva can make more of a difference off the bench and probably give that youth, that speed, that energy that Parramatta need at certain parts of the game, especially if they're behind and they need points, or if they just need a bit of enthusiasm and energy off the bench. I think he can do that. Talon De Silva at this stage of his career is probably a number 14 for at least another couple of years, you'd think. Junior Paulo, I think it is. I think he wants that to be pronounced, his name to be pronounced like that from now on. Jack Williams and Katoni Katoga on the second rows, in the second row positions, I should say, and Jack de Belin, as I mentioned earlier, locking the scrum in the number 13 jersey. On the bench, Dylan Walker. Talon De Silva's in the number 17. So Walker at 14, Sam Tuavati at 15, 16 Matt Dury, 17 Talon De Silva. I spoke about Parramatta fans on the season review of 2025 on the podcast a few weeks ago. I spoke about Parramatta, and my opinion is what changed their season was Dylan Walker coming over from the Warriors. I just felt in their attack it was more free-flowing. There were a lot more offloads. He was happy to take risks when they were behind. When he came to the club, it transformed their attack, and you noticed it instantly. I think he got there round 4, round 5, and from then on, he just absolutely dominated it coming off the bench. I think Desi Hasler putting him there from season 2021 onwards, making him a ball playing lock or just a ball playing player off the bench. I think it was a masterstroke from Desi there, and he's just been one of the best 14s in the game since, in my opinion. Charlie Geimer at 18, 19 Kelma Talangi, former Manly player, and former Tigers player. Joash Papali, who played 5'8 last week, did a good job there. Future 5'8 at the club, in my opinion, after Pezzett goes. Kelly at 21, Jordan Semrani. How good was he last week? What a player. Fantastic player. Ronald Volkman played halfback for a few games last year. Did a decent job. Jake Targo, Aras Nanva, Lorenzo Talatina, and Tankam Brown. So, yeah, in my opinion, I think Parramatta win that, to be honest. I mean, I'm looking at the Roosters. I reckon, I just look at Parramatta. I just think they're ready to go. I reckon they want to start. I reckon they want to win this game. I understand it's a trial, but I reckon they want to win it. They want to beat the Roosters and make sure that they have confidence going into that game against Melbourne, which is going to be a huge, huge game. Speaking of the Melbourne Storm, this is the 8:10 p.m. kickoff. They are versing the Gold Coast Titans. I'll get straight into it. Number one, no surprise here. Craig Bellamy has already confirmed that Suafalogo will start in the fullback position. On the wings, Will Warbrick, who I heard was I heard last week that he had an injury, so I wasn't sure whether or not he'd be right for round 1. But now that he's playing in this game, there's no doubt he's ready to go. Moses Leo on the other wing, while Zach. I won't get into it. Marion Save, he's got the goggles. I love him. He's a really good underrated player, Save. For Nick Meaney, who is going to the Perth Bears next year, as we know. Munster and Wishart will start at halfback, which is a smart decision. Jerome Hughes has had shoulder injuries over the last couple of years. No reason to play him and Munster in the trials. They have played too much football together. They'll know exactly what to do from round 1 onwards. Stefano Kamanu, I apologise. Harry Grant at 9 and Josh King in the number 10 jersey. On the edges, Joe Chan at 11, 12 Atavalu Lasati, who I thought was really impressive for Melbourne last week. They didn't play many first graders last week, the Melbourne Storm, but he was one that I felt like was very, very involved, especially in defence. I think he made over 40 tackles. I think he was really, really strong. So I reckon he cemented that number 12 spot, and I reckon it's between him and Joe Chan. But in my opinion, I reckon young Atavalu Lasati will get the go and the green light for round 1. 13, Alec McDonald, who I'm pretty sure is also going to the Perth Bears. I'll have to double check that, but he's a very, very good player. 14, Trent Talau. 15, Cooper Clark. 16, David Moali. He's there for a year. He's come there from Souths, and he'll be at Manly from 2027 onwards on a 4-year deal, I'm pretty sure. 17, Trent Loureiro. He's suspended, unfortunately, for Melbourne for the opening couple of rounds of the season. And then they've got Jack Hetherington, Lazarus Valepu, Hugo Peel, Manaya Wateri, Preston Conn, Gabriel Satrick. They've got some of those players there as well. Let's go straight to the Gold Coast Titans. At fullback, Keanu Kinney. 2, Philip Sammy. 5, Cialetti Faimani. And Max Feagai and Jojo Fafita are in the centres. In the halves, AJ Brimson and Jaden Campbell. Yeah, that surprises me. I thought perhaps Lachlan Ilias would be the halfback of the Gold Coast Titans to at least start the season. I was wondering whether or not AJ Brimson would be the 14. Whether or not this is the round 1 starting halves, you'd probably have to think so after being both of them being named in this game. But I thought Lachlan Ilias, I just think Jaden Campbell's more of a 6, a running 6 like his old man Preston Campbell, or a fullback like his old man Preston Campbell, who was a fullback a lot of the time at the Cronulla Sharks before he went to the Penrith Panthers, where they had Reece Wester there. So Preston Campbell wore the 6 jersey and wore it consistently and won a comp there in 2003. So for me personally, I just think Jaden Campbell's more suited to that running 5'8 style. So personally, I think he's more of a 6. I think they should go Campbell at 6, Lachlan Ilias at 7, give Ilias the, get the green light perhaps and see how he goes. But obviously Josh Hannay has seen enough from these two to suggest that they're right and ready to go to start the season. Mo Fotuaika and Tino up front. Sam Verrills at number 9. So yeah, I'm not surprised by it, but I was a little bit concerned that Verrills was named at 14. Luke Summerton, I think it was, that was named at 9 last week. Wasn't sure if Summerton would start. But yeah, good to see Verrills in that number 9 jersey. Big fan of Sammy Verrills. Won a comp at the Sydney Roosters in 2019 and was actually the first try scorer in that grand final between the Sydney Roosters and the Canberra Raiders. Look at the edge forwards now. Josh Patson, both Firma on the other edge, and Chris Randall at lock forward, who, from all talks of Josh Hannay, watching Titans media stuff over the preseason, Chris Randall's ready to go and will be the lock forward this year. The interchange, Curtis Moran at 14, 15 Clace Haas, Simpkins at 16 and Cooper Bye at 17. Personally, I'd like to see Cooper Bye wear that 13 jersey in round 1 and just watch him dominate, but I can understand the decision from Josh Hannay. Chris Randall, very good defender, can offer quite good service, a ball-playing lock as well if you put him there. Traditionally, has been a hooker, or he's actually played prop a few games under Desi Hasler. He could also play as an edge forward, very versatile, but obviously it looks like he'll start the season in the 13 jersey. I like Curtis Moran in the 14. I think he's going to be a really good buy from the Bulldogs, just a really dominant player, really strong hard runner as well. I think he'll bring a lot of momentum into the side. But Cooper Bye, he wears a 17 in this game. Doesn't mean he'll start off the bench in round 1, but in my opinion, I'd love to see him wear that 13 and wear it for about 15 years. If he can, for 15 years at the Gold Coast Titans, for at least 10 years, until his body gets a little bit sore after defending for a decade for the Titans. I just want him to be a one-club player at the Gold Coast Titans. I'm really excited for the Gold Coast Titans. I really, really am. I hope they win this game. I'm going to go the Titans in this. I want to see them do really well. Lachlan Ilias there, named in the number 21 jersey. Zane Harrison, who played halfback last week, really impressive. Jalen de Groot was fullback last week. I thought he had some nice touches and good defensive plays. And Luke Summerton at dummy half. Now let's go to the Manly Sea Eagles and the South Sydney Rabbitohs. This is at Glen Willow Stadium at Mudgee, where Manly have trained for a couple of weeks in their 2026 pre-season. They are now familiar with the Mudgee area. Kickoff Sunday, February 22nd at 4 p.m. Pretty sure this is the only Sunday game and the last game of the NRL trials before we go straight into Vegas. So this will be the last game of the weekend. Let's look at the Rabbitohs first. Really strong lineup here. Jai Gray at fullback. This is, in my opinion, the way that this will be their 1-13 for round 1 up against the Dolphins at KO Stadium in Redcliffe. Now, this is a really, really important team list. If you're a Rabbitohs fan, in my opinion, I reckon it's their best lineup they've had in definitely over 12 months. I reckon this is really strong. Latrell Mitchell named it in the centres alongside Jack Whiten. Campbell Graham on the wing. So they've got Johnston and Graham on the wing. Now let's remember, Graham hasn't played wing for, I reckon, maybe since 2018. But when he did play wing, when he started his career, he was really, really good. But back then he was still very strong, but he was very tall and skinny. Now he's tall and strong and he's built. So just watch Campbell Graham on the wing. I reckon they're going to look at him to start those sets off with those damaging runs off kick returns. Cody Walker at 6 and Ashton Ward at 7. Really disappointed for Jonah Glover, who broke his jaw. Word is South Sydney, we're going to start Jonah Glover in the 7 jersey to start the season, as Jamie Humphries is suspended for the opening couple of matches of the season. So Ashton Ward, in my opinion, I reckon this suggests that he will get the first crack at halfback to start the year. So interested to see how he goes. He's around 26 years of age, Ashton Ward. Played for South Sydney for a few games last year. I thought there was a game against the Broncos where they were getting absolutely smashed at Suncorp Stadium. And, I think Wayne Bennett, they were getting beaten by over 50 points or so. But Wayne Bennett, I reckon one of the highlights of the season as a coach, I reckon Wayne Bennett was watching Ashton Ward chase down Brendan Piakura. It was one of the best chase downs of the season. They had nothing to play for, Souths. The season was over. They were getting smashed by around 50 points, but this kid just never gave up. He showed so much strength in his attitude. In that one play, he just showed so much character, and I think he's one that I've got no doubt the senior players would have come up to Wayne Bennett and said he deserves it. We want to play with him. On the front row, Tavita Totola, who was actually on the bench last week. Brandon Smith named at 9. For me, I reckon he starts the season at 9 now. I really do. If you're a fantasy player, he's really cheap. I think he's only about 250k on fantasy. I'm pretty sure 280k. I think it is. So get on him. I reckon he's. It wasn't too long ago. I think 4 years ago, 2021, when Brandon Smith was named the best hooker of the season, and that year I think Melbourne won around 18, 19 games in a row. He was absolutely outstanding in season 2021 in that 9 jersey. And if he can get back to his best, I believe that he holds on to that 9 jersey for a few years. Because in my opinion, Peter Mamouzelos, is he an out-and-out 80-minute first grader at the moment? Probably not. Is he an out-and-out first grader at the moment? In my opinion, probably not. I know that's harsh, but I've just seen enough of Peter Mamouzelos now to suggest that he probably isn't South Sydney's best option at dummy half at the moment. If I was coaching the Rabbitohs, I'd put either Jamie Humphries there or Brandon Smith, and that's what Wayne Bennett's done here with Brandon Smith. So personally, I would have gone Brandon Smith off the bench, but I can understand Wayne Bennett's thinking there. Humphries is suspended for the first couple of games, so let's get Brandon Smith in there and see how he goes. Keon Kalamatangi going to the Dragons in season 2027. He's named up front, the 10 jersey. Tallis Duncan and David Fifita on the edges. Good to see Fifita named in this. I want to see him heavily involved in this game. I think all South fans want to see him involved. Cameron Murray played 1 game last year against the Sydney Roosters and the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Last game of the year, and it was great to see him back after that devastating injury last year. Humphries named at the 14, Peter Mamouzelos named at 15, Bronson Garlick at 16 and 17, Ewan Aitken. Personally, I don't think this will be the bench for round 1, so interesting to see both Garlick, who can play hooker, Mamouzelos, who can play hooker, Humphries, who can play hooker, Aitken can play edge forward or in the centres. I just think, you've got Adam Elliott here in the 19 jersey. I could see him and Lachlan Hubner being on the bench. Matt Duffy will get a go in this game with Sean Keppie, Thomas Fletcher, the young second rower there. So, going to see Liam LeBlanc. It's going to be good to see those younger players there for South Sydney. Let's look at the Manly Sea Eagles now. Fullback Clayton Faulolo. Interested to see that. I thought perhaps Lehigh Hopewadi would be starting at fullback in this game, but they obviously want to see how Clayton goes at fullback. Spoke to my dad this afternoon and he said on the phone, mate, I reckon don't be surprised if they move Lehigh Hopewadi from just before kickoff from the wing to fullback and put Clayton on the back on the wing. So Clayton is traditionally a centre winger when he has played in the NRL. I don't think he's played a game at fullback for Manly in the NRL, I think it'd be nice to see Hopper play some fullback in this game at some stage as well. Luke Brooks and Jamal Fogarty first hit out for them in the halves together. Taniela Paseka and Siwa Takiaho, former premiership winner at the Sydney Roosters, starting the prop forwards for Manly. Jake Simpkin at 9, 11 Hugo Hart. They're not going to play Haumole Olakawatu in this game, which I can understand due to his shoulder injuries last year. Corey Waddell, number 12, and 13 Nathan Brown. So I'd say, for me personally, I'd love to see Jake Trbojevic wear the 8 jersey, Taniela Paseka in the 10. Jake Simpkin, I like him at number 9. Haumole will start at 11 for round 1, I think. 12. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which way they go. Personally, I'd love to see Ethan Bullimore start on the edge, but he does bring so much energy and aggression off the bench. So Ben Trbojevic will no doubt get that 12, you'd think, on that edge. 13, Kobe Hetherington. I'd love to see him start at 13. Nathan Brown, I reckon, will be off the bench for Manly this year. On the bench, though, for Manly in this game, Joey Walsh at 14. Thought he was really good last week, did what he needed to do for Manly. Blake Wilson, who, personally, I'd love to see him on the wing. I reckon I'd go him on the wing over Saab at the moment. Blake Wilson also does have some defensive errors in his game, but I just think he's a great finisher. I think he gets himself more involved in the games. And just even last week, I thought he was really, really impressive for Manly. I always rated him at the Bulldogs He played a trial game a couple of years ago and put one of the best left foot steps on the Melbourne winger there, and he did that again this week. And for Manly, they almost scored too. So he's got some skill, young Blake Wilson. I'd like to see him play some first grade as a diehard Manly fan in season 2026. 16 Ethan Bullimore and 17 Kobe Hetherington. To me, that probably suggests that Hetherington starts the season on the bench. I think he needs to start at lock. I thought his final series, especially for Brisbane last year, was absolutely fantastic. He's only 26 years old and a premiership winner. I thought he was absolutely fantastic for the Broncos last year. 18, Zach Docker-Clay. He actually played for Manly a few years ago in 2019 under Desi Hasler. He's been at the Roosters there for a few years and did a good job at the Roosters last year when they had many injuries. Brandon Wakeham, Jackson Shareb, Josh Felaherty, the young centre from the Tigers, Navrat Willett, he had a bit of a poor game last week, unfortunately. He had some good touches, but a few drop balls as well. I rate young Navran Willett as well. Blake Metcalf, and of course I've got Simone Leafi. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. He wore the number 8 at prop forward last year. And as a Manly fan, one of my concerns of the season is the lack of depth we've got in the forwards. And then I watched him play last week and I thought, I tell you what, well, maybe we've got a bit more than what I first thought. I thought he was really impressive and I'd love to see him play consistent first grade off the bench for Manly to start the season at Brookie Oval against the Canberra Raiders. So that is the team lists for week 3 of the Witzer preseason challenge. The World Club Challenge for me is the biggest game of the week, obviously. I'm really excited for that. I'm also really excited for the Roosters and the Parramatta Eels game. And I'm also really excited as a Manly fan about the South Sydney Rabbitohs versus Manly. And not just because I want to see how Manly go and Brooks and Fogarty in the halves together for the first time, but I'm really interested to see how South Sydney play as well. Because for me, they haven't named a better lineup than that since probably around halfway through the 2024 season. So I reckon they're going to do a really good job, South Sydney, in this game as well. I'm going to back Manly. I'm going to back them. I didn't back them last week. I thought the Warriors were really disappointing. They should have won that and won that well. But I just think Manly, fuck it. I think it's a 50-50 game. So I'm going to go the Manly Seagulls in this game. All right, that is the Rugby League Forecast podcast. That is the team lists for this week, and I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Cheers.